They're on top of that lantern. Hey, Terry.
Hey, everybody.
How are you?
Hey, good, Rachel. How's your day?
It's going well, going well. The Easter Bunny actually just drove by in the back of a cop car, which was really weird, waving at everybody. So that was
Really?
interesting.
Well, that's something to take a picture of.
Exactly. I missed it because I was working, but I saw a little bit of it.
Let me close my doors. My dog's barking in the background, so I don't want him to be a
Okay.
distraction here. I'm in my meeting, Joyce. Okay. I think I've got this. So
I'm
I'm
going to
gonna.
make you the host so I can actually pop off. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Let me make sure you're live on Facebook as well.
Okay. Actually, let's not. Because we're not going to do Facebook. The reason we're not going to do that is I'm going to give agents tips and tricks to put us above our competition. And I don't want that on Facebook. I don't want to be telling EXP how to get new buyers and seller leads.
No, it would just be on our Admirals, or not, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of something else, on our Facebook team group.
Oh, okay, okay. I got you. Yeah, as long as it's a private group then.
Yeah, let's see.
Okay, so you can still see me, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm sharing the screen. Let's see if you can see these documents when I get them pulled up.
Just 1 second. I'll have to make you the, I think I have to make you the, Jules, stop. My dog's here too. Just 1 second. I just need to do one thing at a time and I can get you started.
Take your time.
There we go. Oh, I do see what you're sharing though. Oh my gosh, how do I? Just 1 second. There we go. It's hard working with multiple screens sometimes, it seems.
Yeah, I've never done that. It probably would be helpful for me to learn how to do multiple screens, but I've always just done one screen at a time. So you can see me, and then you can see the buyer agency with me scrolling up and down.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll start there, and then I'll click out of this and click and do some listing forms addendum.
Okay, and I just made you the host, so I can pop off. I hope
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you so much, Rachel. You have a great afternoon.
Thank you, you too. Actually, let me double check. I might not pop off yet, but I'm gonna turn off my my camera and stuff just to make sure this Facebook Live still goes through with me being off of it. So I'm not quite sure about that. So I'll just hang out in the background for you.
Okay. Now, is there a way for me to look at the Facebook Live screen too?
If you, you don't have multiple.
Yeah, I only have one computer screen.
No, that's fine. I can stay on. That's not a problem. And I'll tell you if anyone types in any questions.
Okay, yeah, that was my only thought. I mean, we've got 4 minutes. I mean, I can give it a try, but
yeah, no, it's okay. I'll hang out.
Okay.
I'll just pop in the background. I'll mute myself. You can mute everyone as well, except besides you, if you wanted to as well.
Okay, so right now I don't have the full screen, so I still want to share, but I want to. Okay, I can mute myself. Oh, I don't think that'll be necessary, but all right. I think I got it covered.
Okay.
Hey, Callie, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well, thanks. Y'all excuse me. I'm gonna try to silence my phone, and we'll wait for some other people to get on here momentarily, but we'll just chit chat for a minute. So Kelly, tell me about yourself real quick. How long have you been with KW?
I started a few weeks ago, actually, with Keller Williams.
Okay, and have we met? I apologize. It's been forever
No.
since I've been in the office.
No, I actually started right as they started to get home. So no, I have not met a lot of people.
Okay, and tell me about your background. Are you new to the business? Did you transfer from another firm?
I transferred from McGarry and Associates, and I've been a real estate agent for about a year, a little over a year.
Okay, all right. Have you had a few transactions?
I have. McGarry and Associates was a buyer agency, so we typically just work with buyers.
Okay. All right, very good. So what we're going to do is Rob Pettit wanted me to go over the buyer agency first, because apparently they've had a couple of, between coaching and Rob himself has done, went over the listing form recently. So we'll start on that, but then we're going to go over other additional forms that you would use in conjunction with the listing of a house. So that you'll find that very helpful. And we're going to do this again. This is normally a 3-hour class. So we're not going to do 3 hours on Zoom. What we're going to do is an hour at a time. So we did a 1-hour class a couple of weeks ago. We'll do the 1-hour class today. We'll do a 1-hour class next Thursday as well. So that'll break it down, but you'll still get a lot of good information. So if you want to go ahead and put that on your calendar for next Thursday at 1 p.m., then hopefully we'll cover everything but the listing form, but depending upon how quickly it goes, we may be able to go ahead and cover that one too.
Hey, Terry, it's Rachel
Yes.
again. Just a reminder that we have to end this at 1:55 to give people a chance to get on to PJ's
Yes.
pivot. Okay, just a reminder.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And I've got some, unfortunately, I've got some workers coming to the house. So once I get off of this, I've got to get outside and give some direction here. So
Be the boss, the supervisor.
yeah, the one that's got to pay these guys to get the work done. So make sure they do it right.
Nice.
So Kelly, where are you from?
Concord. I have lived here all my life.
Oh, okay. Very good. I'm from Charlotte. So likewise, native Charlottean. So don't find too many locals these days.
I've stayed right around where I was born too. So.
All right. Now I lost you momentarily. So if you have connection issues, let me know, and vice versa. We'll give this a couple more minutes and then go ahead and just start. And anybody that joins us will just have to pick up here. Now, you know what my role is compliance with KW, the difference between compliance and your broker in charge.
Okay.
So of course, Rob Pettit is your broker in charge, and he is who you go to with any real estate questions and for directions and such. Now, are you a provisional broker?
Yes.
Okay, so until you're get that provisional broker status removed, of course, Rob Pettit is your direct supervisor, and he's still your supervisor, even after that's removed. But as compliance, basically, I'll look at everything that's turned in as far as your listings and your buyer contracts and your closings. Make sure all your paperwork is 100% complete. Takes a lot of responsibility and time off of Rob to free his plate to do other things. And so if you see any notes from me in command about, I need this form or this form was done improperly or something like that, best course of action is if you have questions, Callie, is reach out to me directly by phone. Okay. It's much easier for me to talk to an agent and be thorough and answer all of your questions than try to do a text or email back and forth. Unless it's a yes/no question, and they never are, that's about as best I can do with typing. I type with 2 fingers, so it's slow going to try to respond by email.
Okay.
All right, well, we are going to go ahead and get started. Hopefully some other people will jump on board, but if not, then it'll be you and me. So as you said, you worked with buyers before, so this form you're very familiar with. Buyer agency. If you'll notice at the bottom right-hand corner, do you see my cursor by chance?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So just make sure any form that you use does need to be a current form. They're always revised in July. Now, not every form is revised, but they'll do a revision date to show it's a current realtor form. And so you should always make sure you use current forms. And in July, when they update, you have 60 days to use that form. So come September 1st, you have to use a 2020 form. Okay. But for now, we're not there yet. That's just a little bit of information for you. Your buyer agency agreement, when should you get a buyer agency signed?
Hopefully as soon as possible, but before they start giving out important information, confidential information.
Well, yes and no, absolutely. So with your working with real estate disclosure, you certainly want to get that signed right away at your first substantial contact. And that should be your first meeting. And, a lot of times I'll underline on that form, this is not an agreement. This is just acknowledgement that I gave you that form. So I always get them to sign that day one within the first five or 10 minutes, like you said, before we started exchanging confidential information. The buyer agency, here's the right way to do it is to get it signed before you go start showing any homes. What some agents may do, because sometimes buyers are reluctant, is they don't get it signed until you pick the house out that you're ready to make an offer on. But at the very least, it needs to be signed in writing before you write an offer on any home that they are interested in. So that's a have to. You need that buyer agency in writing before you write an offer. But between you and I always get that buyer agency signed before I start showing them homes. And if it's somebody that you don't know and you sense a little bit of hesitation, then that's the time where you spend to build their trust and confidence and explain that this is an agreement. It protects you and the buyer. It allows you to represent them at absolutely no charge to them. It's basically just, you're a consultant. That's what I tell my clients. Guys, I'm a consultant. You don't pay me a dime. So if you take the time and explain it to them, let them know it's required before you can make any offers, and try your best to get them to sign at that first meeting. Worst case scenario, if they still have some hesitation, show them one home and talk and go over it with them again. If they still don't want to sign that form, you're probably going to have a hard time working with them. They don't trust you. Because they don't trust realtors. It may not be you, but they may not just trust realtors. If I run into that situation, I'm going to tell them, again, in a nice way, I'll explain to them, until I represent you, I work for the seller. And that means I can tell the seller everything that you told me. So by default, without a buyer agency, I work for the seller. And I don't operate that way. I don't think that's the proper way to operate. So unless we have a signed buyer agency, you'll have to find another agent to work with. And I'm going to cut them off after that first showing. Because otherwise, you can keep showing them homes, and then they go back and call the listing agent directly thinking they can get a better deal, or they go buy that for sale by owner, et cetera, without you. So just a little tip there. In looking at the buyer agency itself, obviously it's fill in the blank. Put the buyer's name, put the firm name, Keller Williams, Lake Norman Cornelius, or Keller Williams Cornelius, either is fine. I even put my name on the top line too, although it's referencing the firm. I want them to see the firm and my name on page 1. That's okay.
Okay.
Type of property, obviously, you shouldn't be doing any commercial unless you have commercial experience. So it's always going to be residential. And general location in the area that they're looking at. Now, don't get too specific because they can change their mind. Greater Charlotte area, for example. Or if it's Kannapolis, Concord, Cabarrus County area, something general. Don't be too specific. That way you're covered. For example, if they're looking here in South Carolina, well, if you're licensed in South Carolina, you could show them in South Carolina, but you would need a South Carolina buyer agency in addition to a North Carolina buyer agency. So this just applies to North Carolina. Duration of the form. And I'm going to go over this quickly, of course, so slow me down if you need me to. Duration of agency, I'd normally do 6 months. At this point in time, that's really the end of the year. Even if they're looking to buy right away, they may not find the home that they think they want right away. So I'd make it to the end of the year and indicate that, and the compensation of firm, you're going to put 0. They're not going to give you a retainer, right?
No.
Okay, so under 4B, what would you put for your fee? What is your normal fee? Under 4B, buyer agrees to firm's fee for services shall be in the amount of 3%. Right, 3% of sales price. I always add that in there to be clear. 3% of sales price. And here's another thing that will make your buyers feel better. Add paid by seller. Who's paying you? The seller or the seller's agency. So 3% of sales price paid by seller.
Okay.
Now, as you know, this form does allow you to get compensation from the buyer if the seller's agent or seller does not pay your commission. You're familiar with that, right?
Yes.
So if the buyer has an issue, you certainly need to let them know. But I let them know verbally, guys, if I don't get paid a full 3%, I'm not going to ask you to make up the difference. That's not the way I work. But if they still have some reluctance in signing, you can cross out one of those sections and put NA. You're allowed to do that. You can't change the form as far as adding to it, but you can certainly delete a provision if it doesn't apply. So under section B2, talking about compensation, if you don't get the compensation, the buyer's going to pay it. You can scratch that out and to reassure that the buyer that they're not going to have to pay that commission. Normally that you don't have to do that. Under the bottom of the page where my cursor is, you do need to put in a provisional period. Usually I use 90 days. In other words, if you show them a house and they decide to go back and buy that house after this buyer agency expires, then they still need to work with you for the first 90 days. And let's see, we're waiting on another person here. We'll wait for them to connect your audio. Hey there, can you hear us?
Hello, yes.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, we're getting started here. We're going to do the buyer agency, and then we'll get to some of the other listing forms, and we need to be off in here at 1:55. So I'm going to go a little bit quickly, but we're going to do this again next Thursday at 1 p.m. Okay?
Okay.
All right, great. So on page 2 of the buyer agency, please read all of this. Okay, we're not going to spend any time doing that now, but you do need to read all your real estate forms. So if you have a question, what you're going to do is refer to the paragraph that the buyer or seller has a question about, and you're going to read it together and answer their questions together. You're not expected to memorize a form. There's way too much language on here to try to memorize. But if you know what their question is, you always refer to it specifically on the item number and kind of read it together again with your buyer and seller. Make sure that all persons initial at the bottom of every page. Sometimes agents forget to sign and initial their own buyer agency. It's not valid unless all parties initial and sign. So the buyers can sign, but you have to sign as a representative of the firm too. We good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Here's a couple other forms that you're supposed to give buyers is a sample copy of an offer to purchase. Now, see, it says sample, right? You're not going to give them a blank offer to purchase, are you? So everybody say no. No, you're going to give them something that has an X on it or an NA on it, or it actually has a stamp that says sample form. Give them something that they cannot use without you. But if you give that to them when you're starting to show them houses, again, the offer to purchase is 14 pages. So, hey guys, you might want to read over this, because when we're ready to make an offer on this property, there's a lot of information we're going to go over. So it helps for you to be familiar with this form. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Also, questions and answers on home inspections and the professional services disclosure and election form. That's form 760. You guys will hear me talk a lot about that. It's absolutely required for buyers. So you're not going to fill that form out until you have an accepted offer to purchase and the buyers are to the point of saying who they want to use for attorneys, lenders, surveyors, home inspectors, et cetera, et cetera. But it is a required form for all buyer clients. Home warranty number 11. Okay, there is a firm, America's Preferred, we all know, that does pay us $100 if we use that warranty for the buyer or seller. So we need to put that a fee of $100 will be paid, will be offered to the firm. So don't put zero. That doesn't mean that they have to use America's Preferred, but if they do, you have to disclose that you're going to get paid. Okay, so that $100 is paid to you. So you need to disclose it up front. But, you know, let them know that there's a lot of warranty companies. You'll give them information on home warranties when time is appropriate. But you still need to put that $100 fee in there day one, because you don't know which warranty company they're going to choose. Make sense? Okay, additional provisions under number 13. Everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay. So what would you put in here? Somebody give me an example of what you would put in here for additional provisions.
I was recommended to put like if they were not satisfied with the services of the realtor, that they can cancel the agreement within 48 hours notice, written notice, and that an opportunity to correct the mistake of the realtor would be appreciated.
Okay, that is something that you could do. Here's a recommendation from me though, and everybody has their own way of doing things, is I would never put anything that could be construed as negative or a red flag. I always tell my buyer clients when we're filling this out and asking them to sign, this is an agreement that both you as a buyer and myself as an agent can terminate if we decide that things aren't going well and that we're not working well together.
Okay.
So I verbally tell them that up front at the appropriate time. And that is true. Buyers, of course, can terminate a buyer agency, but you can terminate a buyer agency too. If you've got a client that's running you ragged and is having you make offers at 50 cents on the dollar, you may have to make one offer because you're still working for them. But if they're trying to buy a $500,000 house for $200,000, I'll write the offer one time and then I'm gonna fire them. Because what are they? They're being unrealistic. They're wasting your time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I have fired a buyer before for that reason. Okay, so again, it's mutually can be terminated. But something I would write in here as far as additional provisions is just a reminder, this is a buyer agency for everything, right? New homes and for sale by owners are included. So that's why I would put maybe that in here. Additional provisions. This buyer agency applies to all new homes and all for sale by owners. Please contact agent if you wish to see any of the above new homes or for sale by owner listings that you may run across. Okay? It just puts a reminder to them. If they see it in writing, it's like, oh yeah, I need to call my agent. I don't need to call that for sale by owner number. I need to call my agent because you still represent them and you want them to be calling you first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next page, real quick, dual agency and designated agency. So we are dual agency if we represent the buyer and seller, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so you're always going to have them initial that. They have to make an agency selection. You're never going to have them initial exclusive. The reason being, this is supposed to be done before you make an offer on a home. You don't know what listing firm is going to be the listing firm for the house the buyers choose. So if they say exclusive, that means you cannot show them any Keller Williams Cornelius listings. So let's just forget that one. Just don't use exclusive. Use dual, but you also need to use designated. So have them check the top box and the bottom box, dual and designated. Designated option is a form of dual. So here's the way it works. So I'm the listing agent. You're the buyer agent. So you're a dual designated agent. I represent the seller. You represent the buyer, but we both work for who? Say it loud. Keller Williams, right? So we both work for Keller Williams, so we work for the same firm. So that's why you need to go ahead and do this now. Now, under dual agency competition, it may not apply if it's not a dual agency sale, but you still need to write in 6% of sales price paid by seller. On page 1 of the buyer agency, you would normally use 3% because that's what you would expect to receive for buyer agent fees. But the firm is going to normally receive 6% for a dual agency contract. So that's where you would write in 6% of sales price paid by seller.
I have a question on
Okay.
that. If you don't do dual agency, do we still need to sign? Do we still need to initial at the bottom of the page?
You have to initial dual and designated. I'm going to say that's a hard, fast rule. If you buyers insist on exclusive, you need to see Rob Pettit and ask Rob Pettit for direction. The reason I don't want you to do exclusive again is that means if you say your buyers like my listing, they really like my listing, you can't write an offer on it. You have to tell them to see me. because
Okay.
they want exclusive. Well, we both work for the same firm, so they can't use you and use me.
Okay.
Okay, that is, so it's dual and designated. So see your broker in charge if you have problem explaining that to your buyer clients.
Okay.
If you did this after the fact, it's not proper. But after the fact, if you know that the offer you're going to be writing home is an offer on is listed by ABC Realty, then sure, you can be an exclusive agent. But that's doing it backwards. You shouldn't be doing this after you write an offer. You should be doing it before. And if you do it before, as you're supposed to, you have no way of knowing who's going to be the listing firm for that house that they choose.
And these only apply within the same market center, right?
Right, it only applies to our Cornelius office. That is exactly correct. So it can be a Keller Williams South Park listing or Mooresville listing. You're not a dual agent there. But again, they're just allowing dual and designated agency here. You're still their representative in any case, even if it's not a Keller Williams Cornelius listing. Okay, and of course the signature page, make sure you complete this in full. We want to see emails, we want to see phone numbers, we want to see signatures, including the agent's signature. Okay, questions on that before we go into some listing forms? We good?
Very good.
Okay, now we covered listing forms last couple of weeks ago, and Rob Pettit and Katrina has also covered some listing forms, so we're not going to cover that form today. We'll cover some other addendum, including this new file submission check. Well, okay, disregard that file submission checklist has been updated. So we'll cover that next week. So here's a good form to start out with. So other forms that you need for listings and buyers. I think we lost, here's Kelly's coming back. Wait for her to come back. Hey, Kelly, we lost you for a second.
Yeah, sorry about that. Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Okay, so this might not be something you can help me with, but so I left McGarry and Associates, and I have some clients that want to come with me to Keller, but McGarry is not letting them out of their buyer agency agreement. Is there a way that they can handle it from their side?
I'm going to have to ask you to talk with Rob Pettit,
Okay.
your broker in charge. So remember, a buyer agency is an agreement that either party can terminate. Okay, but you're going to have to get Rob Pettit involved. If your buyers want to work with you, they have the right to terminate that buyer agency with that other firm, and then sign a new one with you and Keller Williams. But definitely,
by law, they should, or just on the contract, should be able to call that company and just be like, I want out of this buyer agency agreement. I want it terminated now.
Yes, they absolutely have the right to do that. But again, don't tell them that without speaking with Rob Pettit, because what's going to happen is their broker in charge is going to call your broker in charge and want to complain. So you want to get ahead of it and keep Rob in the loop.
Okay.
Okay, but yes, they absolutely can do that.
Okay.
Okay, next form. This is required for all buyers and all sellers. So please remember, this is a federal form. This is not a real estate form. This is your RESPA, Affiliated Business Arrangement Disclosure Statement. This tells your clients, hey, we have vendors that we're in partnership with, the attorney, the mortgage company, or we have a title company, America's Preferred Home Warranty Company. They're not required to use these vendors, but federal law requires you to share this and get a signature from your buyers and sellers that you have told them this. You personally don't receive any money other than from America's Preferred. Remember, we said you do receive $100 from America's Preferred should you order a home warranty from that company. So you don't want to disclose that. But these other service providers pay a fee to Keller Williams as part of our vendor program. So please remember, this is required. You can not get approved to close in any case without this being filled out. Reason being is there have been federal lawsuits against major firms for not disclosing business affiliates. So if you want to get paid, don't forget this form. Okay. Got a thumbs up? Okay. Now the listing forms we covered last week, so we'll cover it again, but let's go to some other forms that are associated with listing a house, okay? Because that's what this rest of our time is going to be talking about. Coming soon. We all know what a coming soon listing is?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, everybody should say yes or give me a thumbs up so I know you're still there and you can still hear me. So your coming soon is no more than 21 days. And right now, of course, with virtual showings, you can't show a home in person. So a coming soon, if you take a listing, is the way to go. You can do it for up to 21 days, and then it actually goes on the market as an active listing. But if we're not through this coronavirus restrictions in another 3 weeks, you can always still do a virtual showing, or you can even take it temporarily take it off the market so it doesn't accrue days on market. But a coming soon listing is the way to go. Remember though, coming soon means exactly that. You market it now. You market it now, do all your marketing, but absolutely cannot show it. But you could still take an offer on it if somebody does a virtual looks at the pictures, and you really can't do a virtual tour right now either. But if somebody looks at the pictures and say, hey, that's exactly the house I want, it can be a coming soon and still go under contract. That's okay. Okay, there's ways to do that. Again, check with your broker in charge if you run into that situation. But make sure that the sellers initial all of these provisions and understand that they are not even allowed to let anybody come in to see their home if it's in a coming soon status. You have to wait till that coming soon date arrives before it goes live for showings. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Give me one moment, please. All right, so next form. This is a good one, seller estimated net sheet. Okay, so this is required for all listings. And it is just kind of a fill in the blank, but you have to know some numbers, right? You have to know what to put here. So obviously you do a couple of projections. What's your listing price in that first column? And what do you think that sales price may be? If it's a $300,000 listing, you think the sales price might be $295 or $290, then do one column for $300 and do another column for $290. That way it gives them a snapshot if they do a little bit of a price reduction, what their total seller net proceeds should be. So in the top section, mortgage and liens, you need to find out their payoff. I'm sorry, not their payoff. You need to find out their mortgage balance. You can't get a payoff until you have a closing date. So what's their mortgage balance, and how are you going to do that?
They need to get it for you.
Right. So they need to show you a copy of their last statement. That's just make that a note of that. That's required. You don't want them to tell you, because they can tell you something and it can be wrong. I need to get a copy of your last mortgage statement for part of my records. Okay, that's a have to. Blame it on me. Say my compliance officer, my broker in charge, Rob Pettit, and Terry Rogers, that's part of our required documentation. Okay, well, the seller says, but I do all my stuff online. That's okay. When I'm walking around taking some pictures and making notes, you can go online and print off a copy of your last statement. You need to see what they really owe to do a proper seller net. Okay, you need to make sure they're in the plus side, that they're walking away with money in their pocket. Otherwise, you might not get paid what? Commission. See, they got to have money to pay you commission, right?
Yeah.
All right, so get that mortgage balance. Now here's some numbers if you want to jot down on a piece of scrap paper, because I know you can't write anything down on my screen. But closing costs. So what are some normal closing costs for a seller? Attorney's fees, I put $300. These are just estimates. They're all going to change with any attorney. They're going to have very different fees and such. $300, for example, brokerage fee, 6%. If that's what you're charging, 6%. You can do the math on that and figure out what the brokerage fee is going to be. Express fees, that's where an attorney is going to charge to send an overnight payoff to the lender. I would put $50 or $75. Again, these are estimates. Home warranty, all the buyers that we're going to run across these days are asking for a home warranty. So if the sellers don't want to take it out in advance, chances are they may agree to pay for one once they get a good offer. So I'd put $550 here for home warranty. Put another $50 for miscellaneous. You want to pad these numbers just a little bit because you need to give them an accurate seller net. Even though this is an estimate, it should be very close to what they actually walk away with. Prorated taxes, you absolutely have to prorate the taxes. Okay, if you're listing a house now and you assume, okay, it's probably not going to close to say July, you need to estimate 7 months of taxes because they got to pay that at closing. Tax bills are not due at the end of the year, but the attorney is going to take money from them to pay for the taxes for the time that they've owned the home. So make sure you get the tax bill records and you estimate what the monthly charge is and prorate that out for when you presume it could possibly close. HOA dues are a little bit different. Usually those are either paid monthly or quarterly or sometimes every 6 months. So they're almost always paid in advance. So I'm not too worried about you estimating the HOA dues, but the taxes are definitely going to get charged for at closing. Recording fees, I would put it's $50 to $100 here. They're going to be charged to record that deed. And then revenue stamps are $2 per thousand. So simple math, if it's a $200,000 listing and sales price, the $2 times 200,000 would be $400. So you just do the math on that. So that's a tax. They are going to have to pay that at closing. The attorney pays everything for them. But, you know, don't forget that. And so if you add up all the expenses, total estimated seller cost, including paying off their mortgage, okay, you put that number there on the line next to the bottom, and the estimated net proceeds to or from the seller, there should be a positive number there. Maybe they're walking away with $5,000 or $500,000, but you know, what's that projected estimated seller net? Okay, if it's a minus number, negative number, then that's probably what's called a short sale. You need to see your broker in charge for that, because short sales are very difficult if they're in the hole, and we're probably going to see some short sales here in the future again with the way things are going and unemployment rates. Then that's a whole different scenario when it comes to listing and marketing a home. It's a lot more difficult, and you may choose to refer a short sale out and just get paid the referral fee on it. So this should be a positive number, but if it's a negative number, again, see your broker in charge. Now, when I say negative number, I'm talking about a significant amount of money, okay? If they just bought the home and they're being transferred and they're having to bring $1,000 to closing, and they say, yeah, that's no problem. I mean, we're being transferred, company's paying for everything. I'm not concerned with that, right? If it's $10,000 in the hole, then that is concerning. So I need to know where that money is coming from. Do they have $10,000 to avoid a short sale to bring to closing, right? So you're going to have that conversation with the sellers And again, it's either going to be a short sale or they say, nope, I'm an attorney, I'm a doctor, whatever, I have that money to bring to closing. That's not an issue. All right, great. I'm glad to hear that. However, I still need proof of funds, just like you were buying a house. For my broker in charge and compliance officers, we need to see something in writing or a bank statement showing that you have that money. Is that okay? And you please blank out your account numbers, black them out so I can't see them because I don't need to know your account numbers, but I need a piece of paper showing that you have money to bring to closing if there's a significant amount of money that they're going to have to bring to the closing table, right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because what's going to happen if they don't have that money? I don't get paid. The house could still sell. They could have everything but your commissions. Okay? I'm not going down that road unless I know I'm going to get paid, right? So that's why this form is so important, and it's important that they sign it and you sign it and that you go over it together to make sure that they know that, hey, this is what I'm going to be walking away with in my pocket, estimated, assuming what the current mortgage balance is. Okay? Now, how about the next form real quick? Agency agreement renewal and or amendment. It's a mouthful. All right, this form is going to be used for almost everything, guys. You can extend a listing agreement by using this form. You can extend a buyer agency by using this form, right? So at the very top, this applies to listing agreements and buyer agencies. Okay, you fill out the appropriate blanks. And then if it's a listing agreement extension, you're going to renew it and extend it to midnight on August 1st, right? Or whatever date you all agree to. Or you're going to change the price. Don't go back and change a listing agreement. If you have a price change, guys, don't change that listing agreement. You use this one form. One piece of paper is better than 14, right? Yes. So use this one form and you can change the price. Now, what about other things? So you can use other amendments. What else could you do or offer to help get that property sold? You could offer seller pay closing costs, couldn't you? If you didn't offer it up front. So you're going to get the seller to sign this and you're going to sign it. So other amendments could be sellers offering $3,000 in seller pay closing costs to the buyer upon successful closing. Some verbiage to that extent. Just what are you trying to say? Okay, seller will pay up to $3,000 in closing costs upon completion of or upon closing of said property. So, or how about this? How about they didn't take a home warranty out day one, but now they're seeing people are asking for home warranties and they're deciding, okay, yeah, let's go ahead and do a home warranty. So if you do any changes whatsoever to the initial listing paperwork, you do it here. Make sense? Make it easy?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, sometimes situations happen where you list a house and they do have to terminate that listing agreement. Maybe they didn't get that job transfer. Maybe they lost their job. If they lost their job, they sure can't go buy a house, can they? So if you terminate that listing agreement, it has to be in writing, and you don't do it in an email. You got to use the proper form. So this is a termination of agency agreement where you can terminate not just a listing agreement here, you can terminate a buyer agency. So your question about terminating a buyer agency, yeah, they can fill this form out here and terminate the buyer agency with that other firm. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And here, but say your broker in charge, but here, if they terminate a listing agreement with you prematurely, you can ask them to reimburse you a set amount for your expenses. Maybe you want to get a $500 reimbursement for your sign, your lockbox, and some marketing that you did. You can ask for it. It doesn't mean they're going to pay it, okay? But you can certainly ask. And explain to them, well, hey, I'll release you from your listing agreement, but hey, yeah, I've spent $500. Would you be willing to reimburse me for my expenses? Sometimes they will, okay? Questions?
No.
Okay. All right, next form. We got 15 minutes. Okay, yeah, yes, go ahead.
Quick question. On the, for example, for the listing agreement termination, if the client decides to do so, like the agent is the only one who can provide them with the form, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, realtor forms have to be provided by realtors. So yeah, so you would need to send them this form and have them sign it. I mean, you're going to fill it out for them. You're going to know what the situation is, and you're going to fill it out and have them sign it. But now you're going to ask questions. If they just all of a sudden out of the blue for no reason, hey, I want to withdraw the listing, that's not good enough for Terry. Well, okay, well, I'm so sorry to hear that. What happened? What caused you to change your mind? Can you not ask? Yes, you're going to have a discussion. Okay. You don't want them selling to somebody without you. Okay. They can't do that. They still owe you a commission. If somebody that you showed them that they went into their house because of your marketing and looked at that house and made them an offer without an agent, they still owe you a commission. That's under protection period preserved under Section 4. Okay, but talk to your broker in charge again about that. If you have somebody that needs to withdraw a listing and you're suspicious of why, and talk to him about how to make that enforceable. What you're going to have to do is provide them names of everybody that looked at the house. And then out of the ones that the names that you provide are the ones that they would be required to pay you a commission on. Now, getting that enforced without going to court may be a little difficult. So that's why I say just find out the reason, and if you're suspicious, always reach out to your broker in charge for help. Does that make sense, Genesis?
Yes, thank you, Terry.
Okay, good question. All right, we're going to speed up a little bit. So next form, hey, this is a good form you guys can use, a mineral oil and gas rights form. Okay, this is not a realtor form. Why is that? See that seal up here? This is the state of North Carolina created by an act of the legislature. So this is a required form for all sellers to fill out, even a for sale by owner. So that means you can knock on doors and offer to, when we're allowed to knock on doors again, and offer this form along with a property disclosure form for sale by owners in case they don't have it. Mr. and Ms. for sale by owner, you realize that you're required by state law to fill this form out and give it to anyone that makes an offer on your home. Okay, that can get you in the door and start a conversation. Okay, let me give you the answers to these 6 questions real quick. Number 1, no representation, and number 4, no representation. This applies to the beginning of time. So nobody knows 100 years ago if mineral oil or gas rights were severed from that property unless you read a deed. So the easy answer is no representation. The other answers 2, 3, 5, and 6 are no. Unless the seller has actually severed mineral oil or gas rights or intends to do that, the answers are always going to be no for those other questions. Now, this is in Mecklenburg County and the greater Charlotte area for 1 acre lot or less. Nobody's going to be drilling for mineral oil and gas rights on those properties. So those are going to be questions that are accurate almost 100% of the time. If somebody's got a couple of thousand acres up in the mountain, vacant land, then this may not apply. They may retain mineral rights, right? Okay, so this may be a little different in those situations, but we're not there. Okay, same thing for property disclosure. This is a state of North Carolina form. All sellers are required to fill this out themselves. You cannot do it for them. Don't do it, and don't you do it in your handwriting just based upon them answering your questions. They need to read it and they need to answer it, okay? Now, what you're going to want to do, if you look at this form, and I know you all seen them, there's a lot of questions, okay? And they need to make this nice and clean. So I always do it last, and I go over it real slow, and okay, who's the one that's going to fill this out? It's a husband and wife or two partners, and okay, so whoever takes the pen, and I just do them one question at a time to make sure they stay in line. Yes, no, or no representation. No representation means I'm not going to say yes and I'm not going to say no, correct?
Correct.
But is that not a red flag? It's a big red flag. So if that's their route, they better have a good reason for why they did that, because buyers are going to be suspicious. But can you give me one good reason why someone other than a realtor, because as a realtor, we can never, ever check no representation. So make a note of that. If you have a house that you have ownership interest in and you want to sell it, you can never check no representation. You have to put yes or no. But other than a real estate agent, a seller they have choices. So if a seller has rental property that they've had for 10 years, they only know if something's broken when the tenant calls and says, hey, I need this fixed, right? Somebody give me a thumbs up. Or so yeah, if the sellers don't know, they don't know. So a lot of times on rental properties, it will be check no representation. And so you just disclose that in your MLS remarks to the agents. Hey, this was a rental property that the sellers owned for the last 10 years, and they're unaware of anything in need of repair because they've never occupied the property. That answers the buyer's agent's questions day one, as soon as they see this form. And you just got to get ahead of the game a little bit. So no representation for a property that the seller has never lived in might be acceptable. Otherwise, it's going to be yes or no. And there's some other questions on this form, as you see. It's not just yes or no. You need to put the age of the heating system, age of the roof, things like that. So there's additional questions they need to answer, as well as if there's an HOA, then you need to put the HOA information here. And you need to also confirm there's no proposed or special assessments on that property. And you're going to ask the sellers, but what else are you going to do just to be safe? You're going to do your due diligence as an agent. You're going to call that HOA company and you're going to ask them, hey, are there any proposed or special assessments in Lattice Springs? I'm listing a house there. I just want to confirm that. Okay. That way you don't, that way you know for sure. Because maybe the sellers didn't get that notice in the mail indicating there's a $500 special assessment for pool repairs this year before they can open the pool. Because if you know it, you have to disclose it. And if you should have known it and didn't disclose it, that's how we get in trouble. Right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, here's a good form for you guys to use. So remember, property disclosure forms are for houses, single family houses. They don't apply to condominiums or new construction or vacant land if there's an HOA. So if there's an HOA, it's new construction, vacant land, okay, or a condominium, it's only a 2-page disclosure. So so just remember that. So if you list a condominium, don't use that 4-page residential property disclosure. Use this one for a condominium. A lot easier to fill out, right? Okay, we've only got about 5 minutes, so we're going to keep going. Are we good?
Yes.
Okay. Due diligence request and agreement rather. I call this a repair request to make it simple, but because that's what it's used for, is to ask it for repairs. So when you list a home, you get it under contract, you have inspections, be prepared to get this form a few days after inspections. That's where buyers are asking for certain repairs to be made based on the inspection report, which should be attached. And then that's just a negotiation, just like you did on the price and everything else. Everything's subject to negotiation. So you're going to get that form, but your sellers may want you to make some changes, and you make some changes and send it back to the buyers. Okay? Due diligence request. But this does need to be completed before that due diligence date. So when you list a property and it goes under contract, you need to make sure you put on your calendar when that due diligence date is up, because until that date is up, you don't want those sellers moving out, right? Not unless they plan to anyway, because the buyers can change their mind for any reason or no reason. Well, if they change their mind, then hey, and the seller's already moved out, who are they going to be mad at? They're going to be mad at me unless I told them, hey guys, remember, until that due diligence date is up, you know, the buyers can change their mind. So plan to move, but you know, check with me and let's make sure that due diligence date has come and gone. And at that point in time, there's a much more confidence level that that home is going to close as scheduled, right? All right, last form we're going to go over, and then I'm going to ask, let you guys ask me a couple of questions. And you see there's more forms we're going to go over next week, including we'll touch on the listing form. Okay, the last form, unrepresented seller. Okay, you can write on here FSBO, for sale by owner form. So if you knock on the door of a for sale by owner and you may have a buyer client that wants to see that home, then this is the form that you use. It's not a listing agreement, it's just a 2-page form where they're agreeing to pay you a certain fee to list that house, okay? Look at that form for just a second, and I apologize, I had a closing today, and I need to see if it's been recorded yet, so I just need to, okay, so great, it was recorded at 1:41. So again, as you're looking at that form, excuse me, I'm going to send this text. Just recorded 5 minutes ago. Period. Congratulations. Any questions on that form, guys? Talk to me.
Nope.
All right.
No.
All right. So what forms do you need if you show a for sale by owner? You need this form, but what else? What does it say right here?
The working with real estate agents brochure.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah, you actually need 2 forms. Before they sign this form, you got to give them a working with real estate agent brochure and get them to sign that first. So working with real estate agent form, provide the name of your buyer to the seller because this applies to one buyer. Okay, and then get them to sign this form agreeing to pay you 3%, your normal 3% commission if your buyer actually successfully purchases that home and they pay you 3% upon closing. Okay?
Yes.
So this is easy to do, and I see a lot of these. We sell a lot of for sale by owners because we have buyer clients that may like that house. So this is a good way for you to get paid. You're not listing a home. And if your buyers decide, hey, that's not the home for you, what happens? You've made a good impression with those for sale by owners, right? You acted very professionally. You did bring a buyer in there. You gave them feedback after the showing. You know, my buyer really liked everything in your home except the closets were just too small They've just got a lot of storage stuff and clothes. She's a fashion expert, and that closet was just too small. So that was a deal breaker. I'm so sorry. They're going to respect you for giving them feedback, and they're going to possibly call you to, hey, you know, we haven't been successful in getting our home under contract. Would you come list our home? That happened to me, and it can happen to you too, right?
Terry, you have about a minute.
Yep, we are wrapping it up right now. So guys, 1 minute for questions. Any questions at all?
No, I think I'm good.
No.
All right, was this helpful for you guys?
Yes.
Yes.
Genesis
Was a
and
good
Kelly,
refreshment.
thank you
Yes.
so much. I'm gonna go ahead and sign off here. So PJ's got his 2 o'clock Zoom and Facebook. So congratulations. Get out there, keep marketing and lead generating. And once we can start showing again, we'll get you some more homes under contract. Okay?
Yes. Thank you, Terry.
Take care.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.